taking some time and joining us here today. My name is Bill Huizenga, new congressman for the 2nd District, and glad we could be here. And I think we just first and foremost, we have to acknowledge we've got some tough issues that we're dealing with. An hour-and-a-half session is not going to bring us to all the answers. It's not going to solve all those answers. Really, my goal today is multifaceted. One of those is to build some relationships. We need to make sure that we are communicating as friends with a common issue, and whether it's shallow draft harbors or commercial harbors, whether it's recreational fishing, whether it's harbors of refuge, whether it's making sure we got enough coal going into a power plant, or my business, and family business in ready mix and concrete. We need limestone coming in. I want you to buy all the sand and stone locally, because then it's out of my gravel pit. It was supposed to be a joke. Medina got it. But really the goal is to make sure that we have a usable harbor system here on the Great Lakes and throughout the Great Lakes, and that's really the goal. One of the other things that I have as a goal today, besides those relationships, is to make sure that we're thinking outside the box, that we're able to push the paradigm off its axis and to start looking at ways that we can do things differently, knowing what our challenges are here fiscally and financially. Quite honestly, and I expressed this to Lieutenant Colonel, who's the district commander, Mike DeRozier. I said, I have a set of experiences being the district director for Congressman Hoekstra for about 6 years, and then as a state representative. I think we, in many ways, sort of defaulted at a time into the earmark system, and that sort of became our way that we just started funding everything, and it became very dependent on that. And we need to break out of that. In the House and in the Senate, there are efforts to not have earmarks in there. That is something that I had pledged as well, and I think we're also looking at what defines an earmark. And to me, I look at it, and if it's something, a specific project or a specific town or a specific district that you're going to be able to put money dollars into, that to me, it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck. It's a duck. That to me is an earmark. What we've done in recent years, though, is we've set up these regional funding mechanisms, and that is something that has been a pot of money that the Corps has been using, looking and evaluating what are those harbors that need to be dredged, and having more of a competitive type of environment there. To me, that's good use of dollars. That's seeing an issue, seeing a challenge, and addressing it in a little different way. We need to take that type of thinking and expand that. What can we do to help local communities tackle these issues? What can we do to make it? And I understand that the Corps is very cooperative and very helpful as they're dealing with locals. But let's make sure the state's doing the same thing. Let's make sure that we're all pulling on the same rope here as we're trying to do this. A couple of people I just want to say thank you and highlight who are here. John Connick, where's John? Right here. He's the Chief Regulatory Office, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, coming out of Detroit today, and we appreciate your attendance. Charles Simon, where's Charles? Right there. Chief Permit Regulatory Office, also out of Detroit. Wayne Schloop, there's Wayne up here. Chief of Operations for the Corps, out of Detroit as well. Tom O'Brien, our local guy, area engineer here in Lake Michigan office out of Grand Haven, correct? And Tom and I had known each other and worked together a bit when I was back with Pete Hoekstra's district and on that staff. Chris Antonio, there's Chris right here. Sorry, right? Antio, got it. All right. Well, a name like Huizenga, I'm used to it, so sorry. It's the U's that always throw. Antonio. All right, Great Lakes Shorelines Unit, Michigan Department of Natural Resources and Environment, right? The newly named?
Yes.
Reconstituted. Okay.
And I think our department is changing back to Department of Environmental Quality very soon in name, so don't be confused by that if you're going through the process with us.
Our state representative. All right. we'll take that. Paul Troost. Paul is right here from Carl Levin's office. Paul and I have known each other for a number of years, and he does an outstanding job here locally for the senator. And Mary Judnick as well. And Mary and I also had an opportunity to work together. She's with Senator Stabenow. We're glad that you're both here. We know that this is a bicameral, bipartisan issue that we have to tackle, and we appreciate you being here. And we're going to give them an opportunity to speak a little later on as well. And then I think we have a representative from Congressman Upton's staff. Is that correct? They might not be here yet. I think they were on their way as well. Fred's very engaged in this. He and I had a couple of conversations in Washington this past week about this issue, and he's very aware of it as well. And then I also want to welcome a couple of colleagues. We've got Holly Hughes, who is newly elected representative for Muskegon, this area, and we're glad you're here, Holly. And then we've got Bob Janetsky. Bob is a state representative from Saugatuck, and he's got the Allegan County area. A few issues down in Saugatuck. Well, understatement of the day. A lot of issues in Saugatuck that they're dealing with that. And then Joe Hovman. Joe is a state representative from Holland. Actually now is sitting in the seat that I had held for 6 years, and Joe's been a good friend, and I know in having relationships with these three people that they're passionate about this issue as well. It's for a number of different reasons. Again, whether it's the recreational side of it, whether it's the commercial side of it, at the end of the day, this is an economic equation for us. So. We have a process that we have gone through, and I want to give credit where credit is due on this. This entire meeting today was really hatched and brought about by Heather Sandberg. Heather is in the back here. Heather is on staff with me now, but had been previously on staff with Pete Hoekstra. She's our Deputy District Chief of Staff. And you had been with Pete for 10 years. It was 10 years ago? I helped hire her, actually. You always hire people smarter than you, and she's one of those. And Heather has worked on this issue and worked with the Corps for all of those years, and has done an outstanding job. And I want to say thank you, Heather. And Greg Van Workum, who is back here. Greg is a familiar face in these parts. Son of Jerry Van Workum, but more importantly, had been a senior legislative assistant for Pete Hoekstra out in Washington for 8 years, right? And then was kind enough to move back to Michigan and agree to be my district director here and in Michigan. And it's really, these two people especially are really my eyes and my ears on the ground. Having been a former Greg and a former John DeWitt, if you had met John, who's now my chief of staff, you are only as good as your staff, and I'm very blessed to have some outstanding staff. And if you have an issue, please utilize them both. Getting to them is like getting to me. They will get me that information. They will make sure that I'm up to speed. And if we need to talk personally, that's great. Happy to do that as well. But I just want to say thank you for helping organize this. So, yes. Oh, yes, sorry, Paula. We have a staffer from Senator Jeff Hansen's office as well, and we want to welcome you. So, did I miss anybody? There's the other key thing. You got to make sure you're not missing anybody. We've got a number of local dignitaries, and we appreciate you being here as well. Status for 2011 and 2012. I can tell you that things get a little more dicey in 2012, or at least as they're being projected, and what has been put forth. What is scheduled? There's a number of permits that have been let for this current fiscal year. I know Muskegon is one of those. It'll be the first one that is going to be utilized. Some of it is slightly being held up. My understanding is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, the contracts have been let, but haven't been fully funded yet. We're waiting for the continuing resolution or our current fiscal year to be settled. There is money in the budget, as I understand, as it was passed. We're in a 2-week extension right now. it's critical that we get this year's budget taken care of. Yeah,
They are actually fully funded.
they are fully funded.
We
Okay,
receive funds during the CRA fully funded.
great. Okay, so that is not dependent then on us passing the next part.
It could impact future contracts, but
Yes.
it will not impact those.
Perfect. Good. All right. And I believe it's 4 of them, correct?
We've awarded Grand Haven, Holland, and Muskegon today, St. Joe.
And St. Joe. Okay. All right. So those 4 are fully funded at this point, and it's I think it's as pointed out, it's moving forward. What are we to be dealing with? 2012. There's a new regulation that is kicking in, or I guess a guideline that has been imposed of usage of a million tons. And what that would mean is practically the only harbor that we have in the area would be Grand Haven that would actually meet that threshold. Now that, interesting to me, is that's a threshold that whether it's on the Great Lakes or whether it's on the East Coast or the West Coast or the Gulf, it's the same standard. And it seems to me we may need to go in and try to make the argument that clearly Great Lakes shipping is a slightly different animal than transatlantic or trans-Pacific shipping. The ships clearly can't be as big, and we've got some lock issues and those kinds of things. So there's a number of people that are looking at this in Washington. One of those things that was done is Congressman Boustany from Louisiana has a bill that has been introduced, and I'm an original co-sponsor on that. And it's the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund, which would basically capture the dollars that are set aside for that Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund and use them for, there's a shock, harbor maintenance. Instead of doing what they normally do, is they take part of those dollars and they use them in other areas of the budget. We do this with highway transportation dollars. They are locked in. They are used only exclusively for that. It makes sense to me that we would do this. We've got a number of people here in Michigan that have signed on. Fred Upton is an original co-sponsor, as is Candace Miller, and Dan Benishek from the UP. This is one that, and I've had a conversation with him as well. Paul Ryan, chairman of the Budget Committee, is an original co-sponsor of this bill. He's straight across from where we are today. He's got the area surrounding Milwaukee, Racine. He has harbor, he has harbors as well, and I think it's encouraging having someone like that at that level on board and at least engaged in that conversation. And I think this is part of it. We have to think a little differently of how we're going to fund these. So, 45 co-sponsors so far, which I believe exceeds the number that they had last Congress. My understanding was it was 30 at that point. So we're trying to build some momentum on this and make sure that we are moving forward. So I don't want to take too much time. There's a number of other things. Heather, have I missed anything that you think we need to do? Well, again, I want to say thank you. We appreciate your attendance. We want your input, your involvement, and this is not going to be a one-time thing. We're not going to have all of our issues solved today. We understand that, but we've got to look optimistically and expectantly that we're going to move forward. And it's too vital for us. Last week, during our district work period, I did a snowmobile trip as part of that. Talking about, there's some discussions with a lawsuit about closing down some of the national forest to snowmobiling and hunting and some other things. And it just drove home and underscored really, in my mind, how critical access is. In this case, it was to snowmobile trails and other things. But as we're looking at this district in this area, especially as we go further north, where there's less manufacturing, less agricultural processing, it's more and more is tourism, and we need to make sure that we create that environment that's going to allow this. This is slightly different because this takes active dollars. This takes money in from the feds and from the state to make it happen. But nonetheless, especially these smaller harbors, and we've got Benita Peterman from Pentwater, who's the village president there. It is critical, and we understand that, and we want to be working with you as we're moving forward. So, Any quick questions that anybody has before I hand this off? So now you'll get the real answers. You'll get the experts. And with that, I think we're going to have Wayne Schloop and Tom O'Brien. They've got a presentation here for us. So with that, gentlemen, thank you.